What is up, Motorfest racers? It is I, your wheelman, Alex Cornnut. I'm here today with tunes for the summit this week. It is European Qualitat. European, probably the way it's pronounced, but I'm not European. And I could ask the guys, but it's way easier for me to just mess it up. All right, let's dig into it. I've got the two force cars you need. I got the 918 and the V10 Audi R8 Spyder. And then I've got a couple of other options for those Hyper and Street Tier 2 races. So depending on what you want to do, you can kind of go with that. A lot of tunes to go through, so we won't be doing any gameplay. But at this point, I got enough tunes out there that you guys are probably just going to trust on that one. And if you have any problems, put it in the comments. Let me know. Like, if there's things I can change, and me and SakuraCommander can work together to get you a better experience, let's do it. There's a lot of people claiming they've got the best tunes right now, but I think ours are better. So anyway, if theirs are the best, what are ours? Perfect, I guess? No, nothing's perfect, but for preference, they're pretty sweet. I'll stop talking. Let's get tuning. All right, going into the car, we got the 918 in front of us. We will start there. For the pro settings, as we do, we will look into the visual parts. There's a few things you can do, a couple different bumpers, a couple different spoilers, but like really only two of each, so not a lot you can do with it. Guys, make sure you slap on a set of vanity tires. Get those wheels and rims as far away from the body as you can. I just picked these up in the marketplace because I wanted to see where they fell. They're not quite as good as some of the other ones. You'll see that the rims are actually pushed out further with some of the other vanity tires. So those are kind of like, they're good, but not as good as some of the other ones. So that way you don't have to spend money on them if you don't want the most optimal. But they did have some white walls in there for 10 grand, blue credits, and those are okay if you like that style. Anyway, go with what you feel. We don't have any Cornnut crew liveries on this car right now, so just set it up the way you want. Make sure that for the summit, you guys, you're slapping on a full set of parts on there. Nitro Chemist if you got them. If not, just run the best set of parts you've got. We will dig into the pro settings. For the 918 Spyder, final drive is all the way long. Power distribution, we're going to fade that a little closer to the front, so it's 37% to the front. Grip is 100% both front and rear. And then brake balance, we're going to also fade that to the front, give it a little more stopping power on the nose. It's kind of a heavy bird, so having that towards the front helped out a little bit. Brake power 100% as we always do. Aero 100% in the front, and then back it off 10% in the rear, so it's negative 10% load rear. If you find the car to be too rowdy, increase that a little bit. It's going to make it understeer, but it will allow it to be a little more predictable for some of you guys that maybe don't play with comfort traction control. So be aware, you guys, when we tune these cars, different people use different varying levels of traction control and have different driving styles, whether you tap or tip in, or just really if you're on a wheel. So not the same tune is perfect for everyone. So the very first place I would recommend is going to the load rear and just kind of adjusting that. If you want it more rowdy, take a little out. You want it a little less rowdy, put a little back in. But for the baseline, let's start with negative 10% and then see what you like. For the springs, we are plus 7% in the front and plus 10% in the rear. Had to stiffen up the car just a little bit. Damper compression, we are negative 4 in the front and plus 2 in the rear. Rebound, we are minus 2 in the front and plus 3 in the rear. For the ARB, that's the anti-roll bars, you are going to be plus 6% stiff in the front and plus 10% stiff in the rear. And for our camber, you're going to go negative 0.25%, 0.25, so all the way to the left. And then camber in the rear is only going to be 0.16, so only negative 16 in the rear. So full Beyonce front, not quite as much in the rear. That sets up this car to be pretty good. There's a lot of people that have this vehicle, and so I'd recommend tuning the car this way and then try grand racing with it. You'll probably have a ton of success. Or not. But this week in this summit, they've got us all as 918 drivers, so like, I salute you. Let me show you what other settings we have for the Audi R8. Audi R8 V10 Spyder. That's the convertible. This one you can do a lot with. Guys, make sure you are slapping on a set of wide fenders. Bring those wheels out. It's a huge increase. It's going to add a ton of stability to this car, and it's definitely worth. So make sure you do that at least front and rear. And everything else, do your thing. I like that the rear has those sweet like louvers on the top. So just like I say, guys, make sure you're going with those wide fenders on there. You definitely want the wide boys. There's two different sets. The 5 out of 5 doesn't have the top little kind of humps behind the seats, and then the 2 out of 5 does. So you can do either one of those to get the wide body kit on there. Everything else, just make sure you slap a set of vanity tires on there. Good to go. For the pro settings on this one, guys, final drive all the way long, as we do. Grip, you're going to go -4% in the front, and you're going to keep grip at 100% in the rear. We found that the car was turning in just fine, but with all the grip in the front, it was throwing the ass end out, and it was having the car slide a little bit. So by taking just a little bit of grip out of the front, it allows the car to tip in and turn a little smoother. Brake balance, you are going to be 52%, so you're going to fade that to the back a little bit, and it's about a 50-50 split. Stops the car really smooth. Brake power 100%. Aero, both front and rear, is 100% load, so you won't touch those. Springs, we are going to stiffen it up a little bit in the front, plus 2%. Stiffen it all the way in the back, plus 10%. For the compression, we're going to take a lot out of the car, so it's -16% in the front and -7% in the rear. We had to do a lot of tweaks on this thing to get it balanced. And once it was balanced, it became pretty predictable. I really do enjoy it. Damper rebound, you're going to go -13% in the front and -3% in the rear. ARB, that is going to be the anti-roll bars. You're plus 10% front and only plus 6% in the rear. So we didn't have to go quite as stiff in the rear. It gives the car just a little bit of flex, allows it to hook up when you're in the corners. For the camber, you are -19% front and full Beyonce -25% in the rear. So make sure you don't go all the way in the front. Like I say, there's a lot of times when it's 10-10, -25, -25, but not on all cars. And as you guys can see here, on these cars for the Summit this week, we didn't want to get that extreme with it because it didn't need it. So it was a little more predictable without it. That's going to set up your R8 V10 Spyder. It's pretty good. Guys, if you haven't bought these cars yet, you can get them in the bundle. Save yourself some credits. And then for this car specifically, make sure you throw that wide body kit on there because it's going to make it a lot more predictable for you. Let me show you a couple of options for those other Street Tier 2 and Hypercar events, so you can maybe drive something a little different if you don't want to drive these two cars. Your other Street Tier option for Street Tier 2 that I'm going to recommend, this is kind of a curveball for you guys, is the BMW M8 Competition Coupe Interception unit. This car is a unit, and I am not a fan of the cop cars because I think people turn on the lights. It just drives me wild, but it's really quite fast and it's pretty good. And so I think as an alternative for Street Tier 2 this week for the German cars, this is a pretty good one. There's a handful of other ones you could go with for sure. The Liberty Walk M4 is okay. A handful of the other Porsches are okay. The 993 that we already have on the channel is a good one as well. So if you don't have this car and you don't want to buy anything else, but you've got that 993 we tuned up, go snag that one. You'll be happy with it. But for now, I wanted to throw something a little bit different in there, and we've got this one tuned up, and it's really pretty good. So let me show you those pro settings. Final drive all the way long. Power distribution, you are going to fade that to the front, so it's 46%. Grip, 100%, 100% rear. 100% front, 100% rear, 100%. For the brake balance, you're going to fade that a lot towards the front. This is a really heavy car, and getting it to stop was a little bit of a challenge, so just walk that all the way forward, 74% front. That was where we found it was best. Brake power, 100% as we do. Aero, 100% in the front. You're going to take a lot out of the rear. It allows the car to oversteer, and it turns in a little bit, but on acceleration, it might be a little rowdy. If you find this car to be too much for you to drive, back that off a little bit. Maybe go 7-8%. If it's still too much, just add a lot more load aero to the rear. But for the most part, -14% seemed to be pretty predictable for myself as SakuraCommander. So that's where we're sitting with it. But like I say, if you need something different, go change this setting first and then see what that does for you. Just a little bit of load in the rear will change a lot on the car. For the springs, you're full stiff in the front and you're plus 5% in the rear. So plus 10 front, plus 5 rear. For the damper compression, you're -8% in the front and -10% in the rear. So we do soften up that comp quite a lot. For the rebound, it's -5% front and -8% in the rear. So we're also taking a lot of rebound out of the car. For the ARB, you're plus 10 in the front and plus 5 in the rear. And then for the camber, it's -25% in the front, giving you all the mechanical grip in the front side of things. And then the camber in the rear, we're keeping it a little flatter so that way it hooks up a little better. And it's -0.15 or 15%. That sets up the interception unit to be a pretty good unit, if you will. It's pretty fast. I would encourage you guys to try it this week on the Summit. If you don't have it and you don't want to buy it, try one of the other cars. the Street Tier 2 Audi we've got is fine. If you don't want to burn a bunch of money this week, run that car. It'll do good. But these are alternatives that I think you guys would like that I typically probably wouldn't do a video on, but I wanted to throw something else out there for you since we're here. So try that interception unit. See what you think. I'll be using it this weekend myself, I believe. Let me show you our last option on the playlist for the hypercars. The Porsche 911 GT1 Strassenversion. Strabian version, or Straben version, or whatever it is. The 993 crazy car and hypercar. This is a pretty good one. It's really well done in the grand race. It's a great alternative for the hypercar series if you don't want to drive the 918. So I think that this is a cool one to get. I will say that for the visual parts, there's a lot you can do with it. You can really customize it. There's no reason to worry about those fenders. They don't move the rims at all. So that's just personal preference if you want the carbon fiber look or not. And that's the same both front and back. So do you, Pikachu, not a big deal. And outside of that, just vanity tires. Make sure you get those ones that bring the rims out as far as possible. For the pro settings, final drive, we are going to back it off 1%. That actually gives it a higher top speed, so make sure that you go -1 on the final drive. Grip, 100% both front and rear. And then for the brake balance, you're going to go 51%. So you're going to balance it out 50-50 and then just go 1% forward. But you're basically going to fade that slider to the rear a little bit. Brake power, 100% as we do. Aero is 100% both front and rear, so we're not touching the aero on this car. You want all of it. Suspension, we're going to soften up the front a lot and then stiffen up the rear to get a nice balance because this car was way out of proportion when we started driving it. So it's -16% soft in the front and +10% in the rear. And by doing that, if we could add more to the rear, we probably would, but 10's the most we can get, so that's where we're at right now. For the damper compression, you're going to go -12% in the front, and then you're going to go +14% in the rear. So like I said, we had a lot of problems with this car. The rear was just way out of balance with the front. We had to go way stiff in the back and way soft in the front to try to get it to be level, so that way it would just approach bumps and curves correctly. For the rebound, it's -7% in the front and +17% in the rear. Once again, touching on this car, it wasn't balanced when we got it. This helps it out a lot. For the ARB, that is your anti-roll bars. We are +10% both front and rear, so stiffen it all the way up, boys and girls. And then for the camber, we are full Beyonce to the left, 0.25 on both the front and the rear to give us all that mechanical grip we can. That sets up the car pretty predictably. It's good. Guys, big thing this week. Make sure you are changing your parts and putting the best parts you can on the cars before you go race, because I know that's a rookie mistake, but I know a bunch of people have made it before and will continue to make it. So get the best parts you can. If you've got a set of upgraded parts like a loot digger set, to go try to find the nitro set, or if you have a nitro chemist set, run that. For those of you guys that maybe don't know what the sets are and stayed this long in the video, let me touch on this. Each one of the sets, like if we go into this screen here, the first two affixes, you can re-roll those to anything you want. Like that gives us more resources while braking. That gives us more in the air. These help us find parts. Cool. The set all the way to the right over here, this is called Nitro Chemist. If you have 7 of those pieces, meaning that your brakes, your transmission, your ECU, and so on, each one of those has that white symbol or the white background on the yellow symbol for that chemist, you're going to get 1.5 times the nitro, so like 1.5. It's a lot more nitro. Nitro is amazing, and you keep the top of that boost bar, which is where the strongest part of that bottle is at. Overall, Nitro Chemist is huge. If you want to start slam dunking your summits, I would say rolling parts is a huge deal. You can do that on the Electric Odyssey Hummer EV playlist. I've got a video on that. It's how to roll golds. You might go look for that on the channel. It's one of the higher viewed ones that I've done recently. Go look for that. That'll help you kind of find a way to roll those parts and get a lot of legendaries so you can start doing better. But that is one thing I want to recommend to you guys. Just make sure you're putting your parts on there. And you don't necessarily have to have a full set of legendary parts, but I would really strongly recommend at least getting a full set of like 920s for your hypercars or 750s for your street tier 2s. Doesn't really matter what color they are, but at least you're getting the most horsepower to your car if you've got full numbers. More numbers, more better. That's statistics. Alright guys, that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Hopefully these tunes will get you stronger in the summit this week so you can get plat and maybe win some grand races with these tunes as well. Drop a comment down below on a car that you would like me to tune for you guys next. I'm going to start doing the Summit videos as viewer request videos as well. Whatever comment, whatever car gets the most likes will be a car that I review and build and tune later this week. So go ahead and do that for me. It'll tell me what you guys want to see, and then it'll also allow me to do maybe something a little different. So it's a win-win for both of us. We'll see you guys next time. Do well in your summits. Bye-bye.